for choosing to watch.
Hi, thank you for choosing this video to watch. About half this video is going to be me talking to you about the music I make on this modular synthesizer and other gear that I have. Sort of a studio tour type thing. And the other half is going to be making the music. I plan to. I haven't made it yet, but I will after I stop talking. So if you're interested in that part, just scroll ahead and watch that. If you are interested, basically I've recently purchased some new stuff and I wanted to show it off. And I also wanted to talk a little bit before that about why it is that I bought new gear. I mean, it's music and it should be easy to make with the stuff I had. Why did I have to get more stuff? So part of it is this modular synthesizer behind me is I've set it up as a sort of an experimentation station. I don't make sort of dance music with it. I don't make melodic symphonies with it. I just sort of plug in my cables and see what sounds they make, and if they happen to be musical, then I do actually record it and I upload it onto the YouTubes so for you to watch. But a lot of it doesn't even make it that far. I mean, I do record a lot of it in case, but most of it is just exists in the air as I'm making it, and I learn something or I don't learn something, or I delight myself or I don't, and I get disgusted and I stop. That's what it's for me. So basically, the new stuff I got is this case here. These modules are the same modules I've had in all my previous videos. And an in-depth discussion of them is in existence in a previous video. I'll put a link to that up here in the corner. So there's also a link in the description if you don't if your platform doesn't allow you to see little boxes in the corners of your videos. So I recently moved and I had to sort of consolidate a lot of stuff. So I bought this new case and there's holes there where the new modules need to be. And I intentionally made that. I could have purchased a smaller case. There's actually a smaller case right here that they all would have fit in. I made this case for myself. But I just know that there are ideas that I want to investigate, and there are modules made specifically to investigate those ideas. So eventually, as I save up my pennies, I'll be able to afford to buy them, and I'll stick them right in there. So there's also this is a separate case that I made specifically for experimenting with the kinds of signals that you get from. You plug this end into one end, and you attach these to, let's say, a plant or yourself, and then there's a galvanic response that causes triggers to make the music respond to whatever living thing these things are attached to. So this is a completely separate system that I want to experiment with specifically for that. And I have a list of those modules that do that stuff. I'll put that list sort of maybe in a Dropbox, and then make an attachment or make a link at the bottom in the description so you can look at those. And I'll also make a list of other videos of people who've done that. And also, for example, Instruo makes a module that is a controller for these electrodes. And Clatters is another one. And there's another one, Plant Wave, which doesn't actually make a module like this. It's sort of an extra outside of the box type of musical instrument. So all these, that's what I'm working on right now. But in general, this system is set up sort of source modulation and effects in the very basic subtractive synthesis manner, so that if you know the signal path from oscillator to mixer, then it's really easy to patch, make sort of a voice with that synthesizer. And I did want to go into detail about that. So what I've done is, some of my other videos, I have shown that I use pyrography to burn images and words onto pieces of wood. So I've done that. I've just kind of sliced off a 2x4, little pieces off of a 2x4, and made boxes that I could sort of use as a physical block diagram. So I'll do that right now and come back to this. So I start with an oscillator, and that is the sound source. So what I do is I generally want to make a melody. So I use a clock which provides a regular pulse to a sequencer. A sequencer has a number of different varieties of voltages I can use, and it runs through them in sequence. So I use these voltages to control the oscillator, and it changes the pitch of the oscillator, thus making a melody. So at the same time, I use the envelope, and I use the clock to control that envelope. And the envelope, well, just like any kind of envelope that you put a letter in, it contains the sound and makes it into a shape like, maybe it sounds like a flute, the way you blow through a tube and it sounds a little bit soft at first but then grows. Or a guitar, which you pluck and it's a very sharp sound at first and then decays. Whatever. So I use the clock to also trigger this to control the voltage of the oscillator. And I use a voltage controlled amplifier to do it, right? So I connect these two through the voltage controlled amplifier, the VCA. And at the very end of the chain, we'll call it a chain, at the end of that chain I just put that all through a filter. So I can change the quality of that tone with the filter. I can make it muffled, I can make it sharp and resonant. And at the very end of that, of course, I put it through a mixer and off into, into either a recorder or through speakers. And also, I use modulators. You can, a lot of these things, the clock and the sequencer could be considered a modulator. An envelope is modulating the signals. But I use other ones like LFOs or other kinds of ways to affect the patterns or the tones. So that's somewhere, I can use that, I can apply that at any point, really, to change whatever parameter I want to do. So one of the points I wanted to make was, by doing this, these things can be shuffled around and it'll change the sound of the creation that I've made. It'll change the pattern, but what I'm doing is I'm changing a circuit. Like each one of these little modules is its own little circuit, right? But when I attach them with patch cables, I'm essentially making a larger circuit, which is encased in a standard keyboard that you buy yourself. Those things are hardwired in. That's why I chose to experiment with modular, because I can be the guy inside who's switching things around and saying, well, what if you did that? What would that do? What if you put the mixer there and then, what if I, so that's the fun of the modular system. But in general, I find that it works better starting with the oscillator and ending with the filter. Well, ending with the mixer really, but and putting a sequencer right next to it, to make that tone almost immediately a melody. There's lots of different ways of doing it, but that's kind of how I do it. So each one of these things has an example in my system. So the oscillator has these modules. I have these kinds of sequencers. I just have a couple of voltage controlled amplifiers. And I use a mixer. I use different kinds of mixers because a mixer really is just combining signals. You can combine a voltage or you can combine an audio signal. You can use those in different ways. But the big one is my Yamaha. And I use a couple other ones within the modular to affect the sound. So there's envelopes. I use envelopes also, of course, and filters. And I'm still on the fence about the Oda. I'm not sure if I like it, but it's got a quality to it that I use sometimes. It's got kind of a screamy kind of quality. And well, you know what? I'm just going to put these. A lot of like these here modulators are also utility modules. They're also clocks. They're different. I use them for different things. So a lot of times I just use them as clocks, and I combine the clocks to make different off-kilter patterns. But that's the list of those. And there will obviously, I will produce a little document. I'm going to make this, I'm looking off a sheet right here. I'm going to make this into a PDF, and I'm going to provide that somehow. But if you want to see it the way it is right there, that's what it is. Screenshot if you like. Okay. So that was one thing that changed when I moved. I had to consolidate everything into that case. The other part was an unfortunate occurrence. The timbre wolf that used to be in this case here broke, and I had to get rid of it. So I repurposed this case into sort of a desk, and this now holds my pedals, and it's still a wolf case. Actually, these parts here, I'm going to carve out some wolf heads on them, make them fit there. So the timbre wolf is gone, and that's a sad thing. And it's sad because even though I really love the freedom of experimenting with the modular, I really wanted the ease of using a keyboard to make melodies. Like, I have an idea in my head, I need to apply it, and sometimes the modular is just not the right thing to use. So I bought another keyboard. So that is... This is the Roland System 8, as you saw. And it's a completely digital synth. It's all computer controlled, as opposed to my Akai Timbre Wolf, which was analog, and most of the modules I have are all analog. So this is what I wanted, though. I did some research, and within my price range, obviously I'd love to have a Moog one or a Montage or something, but this fits in my needs. It has 2 oscillators plus a third sub-oscillator, LFO, and a nice little filter section, amplifier, it's an amplifier, but it's an envelope section. They have some nice effects, and a sequencer, and arpeggio, and a vocoder, which I love to play with, and various other ways to figure out. They have tons of presets, obviously. You can download the presets from the internet, and they have 3 different emulations of other Roland synthesizers that you can just push a button and find out. There's a Jupiter in here, and I'll find out what else. I'll explore that with you. But for now, I'm just going to press record. And I forgot to tell you that instead of using this Zoom recorder that I've been using all this time, and then taking the SD card out and inserting it into my computer, I'm going to use my computer instead. I put my laptop here on top of the old Wolf case, and I've just connected it to the Yamaha mixer. Okay. I'm going to play with this vocoder because it's fun, and it makes the sounds you think a vocoder should make, like this. Can you hear that? Can you hear this? Can you hear me playing? Now, my monitor, it doesn't work until I talk, right? And wait, it just gets weird.
Weirder and weirder. Super weird. Super weird. Super weird. It's the super weird voice. 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 Yes, I like this voice. Yes, this voice is a bit weird. I'm not sure if this voice is the one I want to hear, because it's so weird. I'm sure this would sound better with a little bit of music. Maybe I should make some music to go with this voice. That way, you will stay and watch the rest of the video. Thank you for choosing this video to watch this video with your eyes and your heart. Heart. Thank you.